Dear students, today I will discuss on migration, different types of migration, causes and consequences of migration. I will also discuss international and internal migration and the Indian diaspora. Let me explain what is migration. Migration refers to the movement of people from one place to another, either within a country or across international boundaries, often in search of better living conditions, economic opportunities, or to escape adverse circumstances. Migration can be classified into several types, driven by different causes, and has a range of consequences for both the origin and destination regions. Before I start discussing about the types, let me explain different facts and figures pertaining to migration in India. The Constitution of India, Article 19, gives the right to all citizens to move freely throughout the territory of India and to reside and settle in any part of the territory of India. As per Census 2011, 45 million Indians moved outside their districts of birth for economic opportunity, be it employment or business. In India, internal migration, basically emphasized by an increasing rate of urbanization and rural-urban wedge differences, is far greater than an external migration. As per the data of Census of India 2011, India's urban population is expected to grow from 410 million in 2014 to 814 million by 2050. So you can very well relate and understand the significance of migration. Why are we discussing about migration and its consequences? Instead of long-term migration, there is a huge flow of short-term migrants in country. Now let me discuss types of migration. The first type of migration is internal migration, movement within a country's border, usually from rural to urban areas. That is the basic type of migration. Common types include rural-urban migration, interstate migration and intracity migration. These are called as the internal migration. The second type of migration is international migration. International migration means movement across international borders that leading to settlement in new country. This includes voluntary migration because of some economic reason. So we can say that economic migrants or students, they can be part or they can be example of such migration. And forced migration. You might have seen many refugees traveling from their own native place to another country, like recent example is of Bangladesh. There are many natives of Bangladesh who are moving from Bangladesh to other countries. That is an example of international migration. According to the Census 2011, India had 45.6 crore migrants compared to 31.5 crore migrants in 2001. So gradually the migration, the scenario of migration is increasing. Now another type of migration is permanent versus temporary migration. What is permanent migration? When people settle permanently in a new location. This is called as a permanent migration. Whereas temporary migrants include the seasonal worker or the students. When people move for a specific period, For an example, if you move from your native place to Hyderabad for a period of 3 years or 5 years, that can be considered as temporary migration. Now, another type of migration is known as a voluntary and forced migration. What is voluntary versus forced migration? Voluntary migration is motivated by personal choice, often for economic opportunities, education, or family reunification. Whereas forced migration is driven by external pressure such as conflict, natural disaster, or persecution. India is a best example. In different states you can see, like in Uttarakhand, because of a natural disaster, people migrate from their native district to another places. In the same way in Bihar, every year, almost every year, floods are taking place. Even in coastal region you can see, because of the tsunami, people migrate from their own place to another place. In Himalaya region you can see that because of the earthquakes which is occurring every year almost, because of the higher intensity, people are migrating from their native place to other places. So these are called as a forced migration, when people are actually not willing to migrate, but then they have no choice. So there is a requirement to migrate, that is called as a forced migration. Another type of migration is labor and seasonal migration. What is labor migration? Movement of people to find employment, often from developing to developed countries or within countries, from rural areas to cities, that is known as a labor migration. You might have seen that most of the laborers, they belong to UP, Madhya Pradesh or Bihar. They migrate to Maharashtra, Karnataka or such industrial places where they can get the employment. So this type of migration is called as the labor migration. Even you might have seen that people who are not very much educated, they also migrate from India to Saudi Arabia or adjacent countries, South Asian countries. That is also kind of labor migration, and that will be also categorized as international migration. Now another type of migration under the economic category is called as a seasonal migration. This is called as a temporary migration related to seasonal work such as agriculture labor. You may be very well aware that in India, still majority of the workforce are depending on the primary sector. Mostly they are employed in agriculture. So those who are working in agriculture sector, they don't have their own land. They are called as the agriculture laborer, or even if they have their land, they remain occupied only for monsoonal period. So during the non-monsoonal period, they occupy themselves with different type of government projects, or they do different type of work such as construction of houses. So this is called as a seasonal migration. These migrants, they again come back to their villages during the monsoon season. They crop, they cultivate, and during non-monsoon season they again go back, though they search the work in adjacent state. So this type of migration is called as a seasonal migration, which is not permanent in nature. Now let me take you to the causes of migration. When we discuss about causes of migration, the first and the foremost factor is economic factor. In economic factor, we can divide it into pull factors and push factors. Pull factors is a kind of positive migration. Availability of jobs, better wages, improved living standard, and educational opportunities in urban or foreign areas. These are the factors of pull migration. Most of the students, they migrate from small district to big districts or to capital of this country, or wherever they can get an opportunity to study technology related courses. They migrate from their native place to other places. Whereas the second type of factor is push factor, that is called as the lack of employment opportunity, poverty and economic instability in home region. I would like to draw your attention towards the COVID time, when you might have seen that lakhs of workers from Maharashtra, they were going back they did not get any car or any other vehicle to go, but they were walking and they were going back so to their native places because of the reverse migration which took place. So that is called as the push factors, where the lack of employment opportunity again forced them to go back to their native places. So this is also example of push factor, where they were not willing to go back, but they had no choice. Another factor is the social and cultural factor. Desire for better access to healthcare, education and other social service. Like there are many patients who come to Hyderabad, who come to Delhi or go to Chennai. If any of their family member, they are suffering because of cancer or because of severe diseases. So they travel for some time, they migrate from their native place to other places so that they can avail better healthcare facility in these big cities. Migration for family reunification or for marriage also, that is also cause of a factor of cultural factor, we can say, that is also a factor of migration. Cultural conflicts or religious persecution, that also prompts to migration, as I gave one example of Bangladesh, which is very relevant these days. Political factor, political instability, wars, ethnic conflicts and oppressive regimes that forces people to flee as a refuge, and they take refuge in other countries. So these are the political factor. You can cite examples from different countries where war is taking place, and because of that the native of that place, they move from their native place to other countries just to save their life. So now I am taking you to the next factor, which is very important for geography students, that is environmental factor. Different type of natural disasters such as earthquake, flood, climate change such as drought, rising sea level, these can definitely displace populations. And in India, you can categorize the migration on the basis of different type of disasters. If you see that India's physiographic region, you can know that what type of disaster is taking place, what is the frequency of the disaster, and on the basis of that you can actually predict that what type of migration in what rate is taking place. So these are the environmental factor which also plays very important role in migration. Another one is demographic factor. High population growth in certain regions resulting in competition for resources, that can also push people to migrate. So you can see that in most of the cities, like in Delhi nowadays, there is no place available, so that people are now purchasing land in the outskirts of Delhi. In Mumbai it is the same situation. So these cities are overpopulated. People have already shifted, migrated long years back. They constructed their houses, they are from different states, and now they are not finding any land to further construct their houses. So what is happening, that people are constructing their houses into the rural urban fringe. So it is why it is so, it is because of the rising population. As in the beginning of my lecture, I narrated that what is the percentage of migration in India, how it is increasing compared to a decade before. So these are the demographic factor which also led to the migrants in a region. As I was discussing that there are two factors, main factor, that is push factor and pull factor, and if we categorize it further, like if we see that what are the push factors for migrants, the countries of origin, like now I will discuss migrants. One side is the push factor, another side is the pull factor, and then further I will, in between I will let you know that these are the factors, and because of these factors this type of migration is taking place. So say suppose if I am talking about the economic factor. In economic factor, as I discussed, that the push factor are unemployment, low wages, poverty, low consumption and living standard. These are called the push factor, because of which the migrants, they migrate from the country of origin. Whereas the pull factor, labor demand, high wage, welfare, high consumption and living standard. You might see, as nowadays central government is initiating different plans such as Narega. So under Narega, most of the rural people, at their native place only, they started getting job. And because of different water conservation techniques, like they developed the watersheds in the area, because of the increase in the number of watershed techniques, the farmers productivity, the farmers increase the crop productivity because they conserve the water. And because of water conservation, the production of crops that increase, because of that they started getting employment even in the non monsoon season also. So there are different type of policies which the central government and state government is implementing, so that the laborers can again come back to their native places. So these are called as the pull factor. So in this chart you can see that there is a comparative analysis in which the push factor and pull factor both has been explained. For example, ecological factor. So ecological disaster, desertification, lack of natural resources, water shortage, erosion, lack of environmental policy, these are the push factor because of which the migrants, they displace. Same ways, if we renovate a region, if the better environment is there, nowadays people are constructing their house, as I mentioned in earlier also, that people who are staying in Mumbai, they have good amount of money, rather than purchasing their houses in apartments, they are purchasing land on the urban fringe, rural urban fringe, and they are constructing their bungalows there because they have vehicles, they can commute. So it is because of the environmental condition. If you see the condition of different cities in India, most of the big cities or mega cities, they are very much polluted. These cities are polluted because of the air pollution is taking place, water pollution is taking place. Because of that, people, they are willing to invest somewhere where they can get fresh air, where they can get good quality of water. So these are called as the better environment or the environmental policy, where the protection of natural resources that is kept as the most, as a very important criteria. So these are the pull factor, because of which even people are working in the urban areas, but they are trying to establish or they are trying to purchase the house in the rural urban fringe. So these are the different push factor and pull factor. Now let me take you to the consequence of migration. So there are two types of consequences, and I will explain these consequences under different headings. Like first one is economic impact. The positive impact is that migrants contribute to the economy by filling labor shortage, fostering innovation, sending remittance to their home countries, which no doubt boosts their local economies. But if we discuss the negative side of this, then migration can strain infrastructure and public service in destination areas, that leads to competition for jobs and causes wage suppression. So these are the negative aspect. Another is social impact. Migration promotes cultural exchange and diversity, but can also lead to social tension, xenophobia and cultural clashes in destination areas. In origin regions, large-scale migration can cause brain drain, where skilled workers leave, affecting development. Another impact is demographic impact. Migration affects the age structure and population growth of both the origin and destination region. No doubt, if large number of people are migrating, it will be beyond the sustainable limit of that region. It can elevate population pressure in overpopulated areas, but also lead to depopulation in rural or remote regions. So that is why at national and international levels, government are trying to again shift back to the rural areas by implementing different policies. Now let us discuss what are the political impact. Migration can influence political landscape, especially where migrants are integrated into voting populations. If you are frequently migrating from one place to another place, you cannot get the voting right of that particular region. It can also lead to change in immigration policies and international relations. Now, what can be the environmental impact? Rapid urbanization due to internal migration can strain resources and contribute to environmental degradation in destination areas. For example, if you see in Hyderabad, we are not able to get the potable water in urban areas. Compared to the rural areas, every alternate days, the native of the core Hyderabad city, they are paying 450 rupees for tanks, water tanks. So the monthly cost of potable water is ranging from 12,000 to 15,000. This is impact, this is a local environmental impact of rapid urbanization which is taking place. In the same way, whatever resources are existing, it gets degraded if the number of migrants are beyond the sustainable limit. Now, after discussing the impact, let me take you to different internal and international migration which is taking place. Like internal migration in India, rural to urban migration is driven by search for better employment opportunities. Cities like Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, these attract large number of migrants. But there are challenges also associated with that. What are the challenges? Internal migrants often face challenges like lack of access to social service, informal employment, and poor living condition. Whereas when it comes to international migration, many people from developing countries migrate to developed nations for better job opportunities like USA, Canada, and various European nations. These are the common destination. And Indians, Chinese, people from Pakistan, from South Asian nations, they migrate from their native place to these countries mostly in search of better living condition and job opportunities. But they face different challenges also. International migrants may face legal barriers, cultural adoption issues, and discrimination. So these are the impact of internal and international migration. Now, let me discuss the Indian diaspora. The Indian diaspora is one of the largest in the world, with millions of people of Indian origin living abroad. What are the key aspects? First, I will start from history. The Indian diaspora began during the colonial period, with Indian migrating as independent laborer to various parts of the British Empire. Britishers, they got Indian labor at much cheaper cost, and these migrants they were migrated to different countries like Australia, Africa, and it was their policy to place the skilled but cheap laborers. Post independence, migrant pattern shifted toward skilled labor, particularly in technology and healthcare sector, and now the skilled labor still at cheaper cost, they are migrating to countries like USA, Europe, and different other countries. They are more skilled, but they are getting less salary compared to the native of that place. Another one is distribution. The Indian diaspora is concentrated in the regions such as North America, United States and Canada, Middle East, particularly in the Gulf countries, Europe, mainly in United Kingdom, Africa, and Southeast Asia. And as in the beginning I told you that there are different type of migrants. So if we see that a skilled workforce is shifting to North America, to Europe, whereas unskilled labor force, they are shifting to Africa or Middle East. Nowadays the trend is that even people are converting their black money into white money, and they are migrating to certain countries where their policies can actually favor such kinds of thing in form of different business. Economic contribution. The Indian diaspora plays a significant role in sending remittance back to India, contributing to the country's economy. For example, India is one of the largest recipient of remittance globally. Cultural influence. The Indian diaspora has also contributed to the global spread of Indian culture, including different type of cuisines, festivals and Bollywood. Bollywood plays an important role. You can see that now Bollywood movies are liked by different foreigners also residing in different places. Or if I cite example of Indian culture, nowadays yoga, that is considered as a very important method to attain peace, to attain happiness. Countries like Netherlands, in different countries where even in one country entire village has adopted the Indian culture. Now in America also you can see the different type of places they take Rath Yatra. So there are different examples where the Indian culture and tradition is spreading and the cultural influence is very much witnessed by everybody at all across the world. After this, let me discuss little bit about the challenges and opportunities. While the diaspora strengthens India's global connection, it also faces challenges like cultural assimilation, identity preservation, and in some regions discrimination or restrictive immigration policies. The Government of India is implementing different policies for integrating migrants with development. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation, known as MHUPA, constituted the Working Group on Migration in 2015 and it submitted a report in 2017. This report made a number of recommendations and provided a roadmap for the better inclusion of migration and their destination. In the same way, there are different different policies, such as in 2021, Niti Aayog has prepared a draft National Migrant Labour Policy. Other arrangements, some of the other projects like the One Nation, One Ration Card project or the Affordable Rental House Complexes, that is known as ARHC, the Prime Minister Garib Kalyan Yojana scheme and the e-Shram portal. These are the government efforts at central level and or at a state level also, which is helping the internal as well as the international migrants. So at the end of my lecture, I can say that there are very positive impact of migration: labor demand and supply, economic remittance, skill development, quality of life, social remittance, food and nutritional security. Like according to 2018 State of Food and Agriculture report by Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO), out migration often leads to improved food and nutrition security for migrants. That is one among the observation. Demographic advantage: as a result of out migration, the population density of the place of origin is reduced and the birth rate decreases. Climate change adaptive mechanisms such as mitigation has also emerged as a possible adaptive mechanism in context of climate change and the occurrence of extreme weather events like flood and drought and cyclones too. So these all are the positive impact of migration, whereas there are different challenges that are also related with migration, such as inclusion and integration of migrants, psychological and emotional stress. Any person migrating to a new country faces multiple challenges, from cultural adoption and language barriers to homesickness and loneliness. Employment challenges, as I discussed in my lecture, contract wage system, different type of health hazards, the poor and harsh living conditions a couple can face staying in a foreign country. Lack of information: when you are staying in your own country, you will be very much aware, but compared to that, if migrants cannot get all the informations. So in the nutshell, migration is a complex and multifaceted phenomena driven by a range of economic, social, political and environmental factors. It has a significant consequence for both the regions people leave and those they move to. Understanding the dynamics of migration is essential for shaping policies that maximizes its benefit while mitigating its challenges. Thank you.